Hi, my name is Stephanie with the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce. We are the first and only Chamber of Commerce in Canada for women and non-binary identifying entrepreneurs. We advocate for their economic equity and are a member-serving organization with businesses across Canada. And today we are spotlighting one of our incredible members, Alexandra Kapelos-Peters. Alex is a serial entrepreneur, lifelong learner, and people person. Her superpowers include taking action and getting stuff done, two, creating great products and teams, and three, building communities by bringing great humans together. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited, of course. Any opportunity to talk about less myself and more about the business is always welcome and appreciated. So my name is Alexandra Kapelos-Peter, or Alex, as everybody calls me, except my mother and the government. So um, I am a kind of three times founder in three different but similar businesses, and hopefully many more to come over the years. We'll see how things evolve. But essentially, Stephanie was always just somebody who really enjoyed working with people, but also in the kind of context of process and order, and then also combining an interest in design and technology. And those have been kind of strange things to put together. I've kind of had a bit of a very non-traditional career and professional history so far that's had a very kind of diverse background. And so I get really excited when I have the opportunity to talk to people about just business in general, because I'm really, interested in seeing businesses of all kind of shapes and sizes grow, including my own, of course. So um, I am a Canadian born and bred who grew up in the Toronto area, but I spent about 15 years in Montreal. And so I'm also kind of very close to the Quebecois culture and community there. And yeah, and so, great match for me being I'm very excited to, joined and become a part of the Canadian Women's chapter for that reason, to make sure, love getting introduced and getting to meet many women in this in the community and getting familiar with them.
Beautiful. I lived in Montreal for 10 years, so
Did you really?
I did.
Oh, it's wonderful, and it just becomes a whole other part of your life. I kind of feel like I lived two different lives, and we'll see, how the next one evolves.
So, can you tell us your area of expertise? What can
Yeah,
people reach out to you about?
yeah. So my background's really like quite diverse, and so when
Mhm.
I meet people, it's a little strange because I really have quite a few pockets that are not necessarily naturally related. So my current business Consulta, we focus on consulting, and that means either management consulting, business consulting. It's pretty general. For me, my initial kind of first years in the corporate world were in the education and training space. So I have a kind of deep love and passion for ed tech and e-learning and instructional design and kind of training and facilitation. So I can kind of say that's a bit of my first love because that combined, this interest of people and tech
Mhm.
uh, and kind of love of learning. So I guess, in that space, that's something I'm familiar with, and I really try to stay as involved as possible within the kind of e-learning and higher education and education space. And then I actually spent a few years in the healthcare and pharmaceutical industries, and they're related but not the same. So I do have some kind of knowledge and familiarity in the pharmaceutical space, and then healthcare being a little bit more related to kind of health and wellness and public health education as well. So you see, there's like a bit of this crossover when you get to kind
Mhm.
of educational aspect um, and then as well, I had a number of years working in kind of corporate e-learning and IT departments. So, and finally moved over into the agency world and worked kind of in more software development and IT for some large corporates and brands. So I guess as well, kind of e-learning and moving into so software as a service and app development, web development, and e-commerce. So a little bit all over the place there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I love all of these different areas. I actually worked in transportation for some time as well, and learned a bit about kind of sanitation and as well corporate governance and client service. So really all over the place. But for me, it's just I'm very passionate about kind of learning different industries and how kind of both people and technology can kind of intersect in the business world and kind of be used for good. And then really layering in this concept of consulting and really just seeing what we as professionals can kind of add to the business community through kind of strategy and advisory, and making good use of these people in technology to bring about positive change in kind of any organization.
I see. So, what made you decide to pursue your business?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I'm always curious too. I watch, I'm a fanatic of the, kind of Shark Tank and Dragon's Den kind of entrepreneurial shows, and yeah, I always adore those questions. Kind of, what's the moment of inspiration or your aha moment? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So in my first my first two businesses are both specifically in consulting and professional services. So they I wouldn't say I had a kind of inspiration or origin story the same way for those. For those, it was a bit more about kind of filling gaps. So just kind of that traditional story of doing work and thinking, oh, there must be a better way. This seems a little bit inefficient, or the available options that I was aware of just didn't really seem to be doing the job. And so, kind of filling gaps was the, I would say, kind of initial inspiration for when I started my consulting businesses. With my latest business with Consulta, we're actually a website for consulting. So it's kind of the tech play. Um, and there, the story is a little bit different. I actually have two kind of origin stories, and they're both true. But I guess the inspiration for the business happened twice, and it was really only,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, after the second time around that really I was compelled to kind of put it together. But for me, when I started Consulta, the idea was really that what you, I guess, hear with many founders of kind of trying to solve my own problems. And the first one was, so Consulta is a website, we're a marketplace that we kind of connect business clients with consultants, independent consultants, and
Mm-hmm.
allow them to work together in an online marketplace, kind of like Etsy or Amazon or Airbnb, except for professional services. And the initial kind of reason for me is that as I was working or have been working as a consultant, working with some businesses myself for a number of years, was getting kind of increasingly frustrated with the kind of administrative side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working for large corporations, of course, they had many mechanics in place to make that collaboration, I won't say easy, but it was structured. So in large companies, there were already many, many ways to work with the procurement teams would advise on the thousand things that you had to do, and what that relationship was going to look like. And it was very inflexible, but nonetheless, structure existed. But when I worked with smaller companies, which I really enjoy doing, I love to work with entrepreneurs and small businesses, just for the ability to kind of have really an even greater kind of impact on them and on the work. When I was working with smaller businesses, I found it to be, as a consultant, very frustrating
Mm-hmm.
and cumbersome to, kind of do work for them efficiently, in the sense of the administrative effort sometimes really wasn't worth it. And so, just to give someone a quote and put together a proposal and even to bill them for the work, there were times where, I'd be doing work that was only for a few hours or a few $100s. And unfortunately, just the effort involved to do the work for that client really like outweighed the return. And
Mm-hmm.
so as much as, right, I really wanted to work on these projects with these clients because they were very exciting and new, it really just wasn't worth it. And so I found that very frustrating. So as an independent consultant myself, I was kind of increasingly frustrated with this situation of being like, oh, here's a project I want to do and someone I really want to work with. And it just, I was getting to the stage where I was actually losing money by trying to help people.
Mm.
So that was kind of initially frustrating. And then, after kind of months or maybe even longer of sitting and stewing to myself and complaining, I also had an experience on the flip side as a client. So
Mhm.
in one of my my other businesses, I'm was responsible for kind of all of the taxes and financial reporting and the financial side of the business. And had what was probably, I thought it was actually like a scam call or a robocall, but one Friday night, very close to Christmas, I got a phone call from the CRA informing me that
Mm.
our very significant tax return, I think it was, give or take $100,000. It was not an insignificant amount that we had submitted for, and we were waiting for the return to be processed. And I got a phone call at like 6 o'clock on a Friday from the CRA saying that, lucky me, our file had been selected for review. They
Mm.
don't say audit, but that's what it means.
Yes.
Right. And this was a really terrifying prospect because in our company, a number of people who were obviously their pay and everything was tied to, all of their compensation would be tied to it. And as a business, of course, we would always make good on our financial commitments, but there's a lot of cash that was expected that now looked like it wasn't going to be coming in those expected timeframes.
Mm.
And it was really kind of terrifying. And the specific reason for this inquiry actually had nothing to do with me or our business. It was actually that one of our purchasers, one of our clients, they had some kind of very unusual tax setup, and so the CRA had decided to just look into all of their suppliers and relationships. So it had nothing to do with us, but nonetheless, the government was going to hold up our um, hold up our filing as they kind of investigated. And as a result of that, they had a number of really kind of complicated questions for me that I was unfamiliar with. So we do a lot of international business,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of questions coming up around the kind of cross-border situation with the US and our contracting there. So long story, all that to say, I had a terrifying phone call that really was putting all of this money in jeopardy. And I really just felt very alone, being
Mm.
a kind of small business, not knowing where to turn. Our accountants are lovely people. I really enjoy them, but they had no direction here. This was out of kind of their area of expertise and understanding, so they couldn't really help. And so I found myself, in the middle of this Friday night, just very stressed about being able to, pay the bills down the road and not knowing where to turn. And so
Mhm.
found myself very kind of overwhelmed with going online. I remember finding, I think, something like, 14 million Google results for what to do in this situation.
Mhm.
They were all conflicting. One website would tell me something, another one, here's a form to complete, do say this, don't say that. And so it was really quite overwhelming and yeah, very stressful. And I just felt very alone and powerless. And so that was, I think, kind of the second trigger for me in starting the business was um, having this moment where I thought, oh my goodness, I'm a small business. I deserve to kind of be successful and, helpful like everyone else in this endeavor. But where do I turn to? I'm not a big
Mhm.
corporate. I don't have a department with tons of people to call on to help me and to get me out of this situation or to tell me what to do next. So that was kind of the second trigger. And it does have a happy ending, I should say. I was very lucky that my personal accountant, as I was speaking to her and explaining the situation, she said, "Oh, I know a guy," and connected me with someone who, spent 15 minutes on the phone and explained to me exactly what forms to complete and what to say and what to do,
Mhm.
and problem solved. And so that really, for me, kind of solidified what our tagline here is: a consultant, the expertise within reach. It really solidified for me the value of working with experts, but also in how it's so important that that access be fair and equitable and that we give that
Mhm.
opportunity to everyone. Because, what could be that could have been a very expensive and very stressful moment for me or other,
Yes.
small businesses, but actually was something that was pretty easy and insignificant for someone who kind of had been there and done that.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
so, what is a piece of advice you could offer others who would like to follow in your path?
Oh goodness. Yeah. I mean, I always I like love and dread those questions. One, because I certainly haven't figured it out yet. And I'm still learning all the time. It's kind of this just change of lifelong learning and constantly kind of trying to figure it out. Um, I have, though I do think I've been very lucky so far to have gathered what I would call kind of some very expensive but valuable life lessons,
Mhm.
and happy to kind of share those with others. Um, I think for me personally, so far, that kind of in terms of following in one's path, I don't have too much advice to give there. I've kind of
Mhm.
been one of those people who have fallen into my path and more kind of embraced things as they happen. So,
Mhm.
it was not one of those kind of predetermined courses where it says, here's my goal and I'm going after that. And I admire people who do that. My path has been more kind of doing something and then an opportunity just kind of seems to land
Mm.
and say, let's go with this and let's go down this path and see what happens. Um, so it's all often very kind of messy and unclear. Um, but for me, I've so far found, success, but more happiness in following the path and kind of like
Mhm.
seizing those moments.
Is
Um,
there a message you'd like to share with other women entrepreneurs?
yeah, I mean, I think that there are so many, it's I don't want to be a cliche, of course. We hear a lot now about, when people talk about like leaning in and
Mm.
kind of really taking space. Um, but I do think that is really valuable. I think that we talk a lot about um, I think it's really important to kind of to be bold and to kind of really get involved. I think, especially the last few years, there's more and more, which I think is wonderful, attention on DEI and diversity inclusion, and I think it's really important that we don't just kind of take that as cliche or as lip service. There
Mhm.
really is a true, strong kind of business value in having diversity of experience and different perspectives at the table. So I think oftentimes I feel like I speak to other kind of women entrepreneurs. I think um, there's somehow this terrible reluctance that many of us have, and I hear a lot about imposter syndrome and how kind of women feel out of place, and then we're kind of constantly trying to excuse ourselves or give ourselves permission to kind of have a seat at the table,
Mhm.
and that's upsetting. And I think it's really important that we remember, we're not doing ourselves favors by being our own champions. We're not like um, it's not, it's like a pity party. We're not, saying, oh goodness, now here I am. I'm the diversity hire, or I'm the 50%, like helping someone make their quota. No, we have as leaders legitimate value and purpose in being present in the
Mhm.
global kind of economy and business community. So, I'm not doing a favor, and neither are you, Stephanie, right? Like, we're not doing favors to people by kind of being on their boards or being present in
Mhm.
conversations and being part of the story. We don't need to just be a checkbox, that this is, having equal representation and equity within the kind of global economic community is something that's valuable for the community,
Mhm.
right? So like we all have something great to offer, and that diversity of our experience is something super important. So,
Mhm.
when we fight and when we're bold and when we're loud, I think good. That's not just us doing it for a cause. That's us really making change in the world. That's kind of necessary and important for everyone's
Mhm.
sake.
Is that what made you join up with the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. I found that it's been kind of challenging, again, as a woman-owned business, but also just as a small business and as a
Mhm.
startup. There are so many resources available, but at the same time, I find that like kind of a sense of community can be a bit difficult. Um, and I actually was referred, one of our consultants is already a member
Mhm.
of the chamber. And so I was referred that way. But, already I found a lot of great value just in the few short, I guess, weeks that I've been a member already, just in kind of connecting with a few other business owners and leaders. Had some great conversations already. So I'm kind of seeing a lot of value out of that. And for me, that's kind of what's really important, is the advocacy side, as well as kind of the sense of community and being able to connect and hopefully help others, and hope that I can do my part and benefit at some form down the road as well.
Wonderful. And how would you like to hope to see your business grow?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is like what's really exciting. Opportunities like this to talk about the business are always wonderful. I think ultimately for me, what success looks like is always evolving. But
Mhm.
success in this business really does look like helping others. So Consulta is a business helping other businesses, and so for me, watching our clients succeed, again, sounds cliched, but it's legitimately true. The kind of greatest reward for me and for I think most of our consultants is seeing, working with a business and watching their version of success, whatever that looks like, whether it's an increase in profit or sales or revenue. It could be something that's just in terms of like the project work that they're doing and the successes they've had in rolling out a program or whatever kind of their objectives are. Um, it really is a culture of kind of mutual shared success, and that's where kind of I get the most uh, kind of reward for sure. And so, for me, what success kind of looks like, and what I'm hoping to get out of just meeting and knowing more people in the community, is really just kind of growing the client base and growing the number of clients and businesses that we can, organizations that we can have an impact on. So kind of the greater reach as possible is always something that I'm kind of looking for. And I do have wild aspirations of really helping to kind of change the way people do business together globally, and kind of take advantage of being able to support each other with kind of good ethical and effective kind of business consulting and practices. So for me, just getting the word out, having people know that we exist, and then in turn being able to help their organizations. That's really kind of the mission that I'm on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here. And
Thank you.
if you want to connect with Alex and meet hundreds of other entrepreneurs, I invite you over to the Community Circle platform, which you can find at canwcc.circle.so. See you there.